We live in a time where masculinity is shamed and men don't know what it means to be a man. As a pastor and counselor, I've spent the better part of my life equipping and training others. My goal with this show is to translate my hard-earned experience into tools and tactics to help you become stronger as a man. This is the BraveCo podcast. I'm your host, Jason Affeldt. Guys, welcome to the BraveCo podcast. Today, I'm here with my good friend and a guy that I really admire and look up to, Jeremy Affeldt. Jeremy is a three-time World Series champion. He's a left-handed pitcher, which makes him pretty unique, but also an incredible dad, which I think is probably the reason why I'm so drawn to him. I find myself most drawn to who a guy is outside of his professional world. And so Jeremy's an incredible dad. Jeremy, you have three boys. Is that correct?
Yeah, I've got three boys. I've got a 14, gonna be 15, 6'5", 225.
Holy smokes.
He is a toad, football and basketball player.
Okay.
Works out with me, about to be stronger than me. I don't tell him that, but
yeah, for real.
He just turned 14 in September or in August 28th. So really, so he's a big kid. I have an 11-year-old. It's going to be 12 in September. And I got a 9-year-old. It's going to be 10. My oldest and youngest were born on the same day. So,
wow, no way.
Yeah. So I'll be 15, 12, and 10 here. And they are all boy. And my hunting bill is, my hunting bill gets up there. Bro, we have a good time. Doubt.
And then also, we'll talk about this in a little while, but you just opened up your brewery, which is Free Roam Brewing Company. So I'm pretty stoked to go down to Texas and hang out in your brewery with you. Yeah. Check it out. You're actually podcasting from there right now. So
yeah, I am. I'm in my podcast studio and I look out at my brewery and check it all out. It's pretty fun.
So cool.
Yeah.
I love it, man. Well, hey, while we're getting started, would you just tell us a little bit about where you grew up and what was life like for Jeremy Affeldt?
Yeah, I grew up as a military brat. My dad was in the Air Force. So we kind of grew up while he was a bombardier for B-52, so radar navigator. So he kind of bounced around everywhere and spent a lot of my time in Washington State. And where my dad was stationed at Fairchild, he lives up there again. After he retired, he moved us back there. But we went to Guam, so I lived overseas for a while.
Wow. How long?
Little island, about 30 miles long, 10 miles wide, super tiny island.
How long did you live there?
I lived there for my second, third, and fourth grade years.
Wow, that's cool.
I developed a mental fear of sharks during that time, and had a hammerhead shark flip over the reef at the base beach there, and almost got me. I had a surfer, a guy come and try to grab me. So I've learned to scuba dive since because I've taken on that challenge to conquer my fears. Yeah, so I scuba dive and purposely try to find sharks now.
Come on.
But I got to spend some time over there, see the Orient. Amazing times, got to see amazing things. And then my dad was in Castle Air Force Base, which is in Merced, California, just about 3 hours?
Yeah,
3 hours
not
south
far from where I'm at. Yeah.
So spent some time there. Grew up a Giants and an A's fan, so that was pretty cool, and I got to play for the Giants. But then I moved. My dad retired and moved me back up to Spokane, Washington. Like I said, they still live there. My sister still lives there. Went to high school there. Then
were your parents married or divorced?
They're married still. They had, I think we're looking at 44 years. I think going on 43, 44 years married.
Oh, that is so awesome.
Crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
I have a sister, older sister, 2 years older than me, they're pastors of a church in Spokane.
Okay, that's cool. Now, were you growing up, was becoming a baseball player, a pro baseball player, was that always in your sights?
It was crazy to believe, a lot of kids, I guess a lot of kids are like, I want to be a professional baseball player. My dad and I were at the Oakland A's Coliseum when I was 12, and we went to a lot of those games, but we went to this game for some reason. And I remember he usually got me the nosebleed seats up in the top of Oakland. And that was when they had the upper tank open. Like, bro, they don't even have it open now.
I remember those days. I didn't go a lot, but when I was young, probably 12 years old, my dad took me to Oakland Stadium. The A's were my team, man.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Jose Canseco, Ricky Henderson.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're massive. Now we know why, there's other reasons why they're so big.
Bro. Yeah, we do know why.
Massive human beings. But I will say this, I remember sitting there and I remember seeing all those guys. Dave Stewart was pitching that day. That was my favorite pitcher.
Yeah.
And I watched him. I think McGuire hit a couple homers that game. I was just so in awe. And I looked at my dad and I said, Dad, one day I'm going to play here.
Wow.
And he just patted me on the head. He's like, go get him, kid. I never went to a camp. I just played a lot. And then I remember I was 22 years of age. I walked into the Oakland Coliseum through center field. That's where the bus drops you off. And I was walking in with the Royals and I had my Nokia phone, the one with like the worm game on it.
Yes, dude. Yes.
That's the phone I had. And called him and I said, Dad, hey, you know where I'm at today? He's like, yeah, you're in Oakland. I'm like, yeah. Dad, do you not remember what happened here? He's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, Dad, I see the very seats we were sitting in when I said today, I want to play here one day. And tonight I pitch. He hung up the phone on me. And I was like, so I called my mom back. They don't even have cell phones. They have still got the phone on the wall, and I call him back and I go, Mama, what happened? He's like, your dad's crying. He just wants you to hear him, so it was such a big deal for him to actually the reality of that. It just sits in when a son says, Dad, I want to dream. Right. And he never stopped me from dreaming. I will say that. Right. But I think for a dad to not stop you, but not necessarily but then when you actually do it, and I didn't get that until I had sons. And now I'm like, right, I'm going to cry like a baby. If they ever say one day I'm going to do this and they actually do it, I'm going to cry like a baby, it was pretty crazy.
It's a little tough being a dad sometimes because your kids, in telling your kids that they can dream, of course, because they come up with some crazy dreams. My son is Elijah. He's 22 now, but when he was young, he's just the kind of guy that goes after life fully. So I remember him saying to me one day, I was down doing the laundry and he comes and he goes, Dad, I need an agent. And I said, what do you mean you need an agent?
Yeah.
He says, I need an agent because I want to become an actor. And Kyle was my roommate, said that I just need an agent and then I can become an actor. And I was like, oh, why don't you go ask Kyle if he can help you get an agent then? And then, the week after he would tell me, Dad, I want to start a go-kart store. It was never he didn't have it wasn't no small practical thing. He wanted to start to sell parts for go-karts.
Yeah.
And he's like, Kyle said that all I have to do is get a business license and anyone can get that. And then we could start our business.
That's all you got to do.
That's all you got to do. And he wanted to write a book. Papa wrote a book because writing books is easy. Yeah. So I could imagine your dad was probably in the same boat of Jeremy finding different dreams every week that he wanted to chase. Because
he also knew baseball. I didn't go to baseball camps. I just played ball in my backyard and in Little League, it wasn't there was any kind of select thing going on.
Bro, how do you make it to the pros if you don't how do you make it to the pros without going to camps and doing all that stuff?
Nowadays, I don't know. The game's pretty advanced and I'm down here in Texas where, oh my gosh, 30,000 at a high school football game. The whole town shuts down.
Wow.
Their life depends on a 16-year-old boy catching a touchdown,
Bro,
they're banking their identity on a 16. Yeah. So it's nuts, but, and there's a lot of sports going on down here, a lot of individual training.
Yeah.
I just played a lot. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have, social media. We didn't have gaming. We weren't watching YouTubers make $20 million a year playing video games. We didn't see any of that. So our only dreams are get outside and figure it out, and that's what I did. Played, I'd throw a ball off a wall. I'd pick a spot. I'd take a chalk and I put an X on a little cement and I try to hit that as many times as I could. I had no idea that was training myself to be accurate. I was just competitive. Wow. So I wanted to say, I'm going to see how many times out of 15 I can hit it. And then I'd start over again and try to beat it. It was just natural. It probably God if you think about it now, it's probably birthed by God in the sense of like, you have no idea why I'm asking you to do this, but trust me, you need to do it. Like I get that now, but as a kid, you were just like, I don't know, I'm just competitive. I just, want to try to do it. That's all I did. And when I signed out of high school, I went to pro ball and found out everybody was better than me. And I was the best person that in my city. But what you had to do is learn to fail. You had to learn to understand that failure is not a real word. It's a poorly executed, verbiage in our culture. The word failure, I tell my boys, there's no such thing as failure. It's called teachable moments. If you don't fail, you learn. And when you succeed, you ride the wave as long as you can, right? Until you get knocked on your butt. And then you got to figure out why you got knocked on your butt. Right. So, I had to learn that concept because I had never failed. High school was not, I never failed high school. So it's baseball wise, so I had to learn to do that. I also learned about what it meant to believe in a sovereign God, in the sense of baseball showed me I was struggling so bad one time, just struggling baseball. I mean, I think probably still the record. I gave like 15 hits in 5 innings in A-ball. I mean, I think that's a high, Carolina League record, by the way. But I'm 42. I was 18 when I set that record, so 19 or whatever. And I will say this: I had a pastor come up to me. Al Egg was his name. He's out of Portland.
Were you saved back then?
I was.
Okay.
But I was kind of in that boat of, I went to church because my parents went to church. Right. Now I'm on my own. Yeah. How do I decide whether God's real? It's up to me, right? Yeah. That's where I was at. And he handed me a picture. I was telling him about my struggles and I was boohooing myself. And he handed me a picture of a tandem bicycle. And I'm like, what is that? He's like, put it in your Bible. I'm like, why? He's like, anytime you start to get frustrated or want to give up, you have to ask yourself, which seat is God on?
Dude.
And he goes, both people have to pedal on a tandem bicycle.
Yeah.
You got to crank it out. You don't make one person pedal, but only one person steers, man. And God's not asking you to steer. He's asking you to pedal. So you keep working as hard as you can, get to the field early today, crank it out, focus on what you do, go out there, give it your best shot, let the man steer. And man, when I did that,
that's good advice, bro.
My career went way different. I went from struggling A-ball to being in AA the next year, making 2 all-star teams. Wow. Didn't get called up like I was supposed to get called. I was supposed to skip AAA and get called to the big leagues that year. Didn't. Got frustrated and then remembered that because I always carried that in my Bible. Wow. And I remembered, okay, I'm going to pedal. And then the next year I walk into the spring training, I make the big league team, skip AAA. And I never looked back. I spent 14 years in the big leagues. Like, it was just that thing for me that I always thought about, even at the big league level. When I'm wanting to get selfish and take over, I got to ask who's who's steering the tandem bicycle. And that's where I learned all that. And that's the sovereign God. That would be when I tell people, they say, what do you mean God knows all and sees all? So you can just sit there and not do anything. Yeah. And my best way to describe how a sovereign God works is a tandem bicycle. You still got to work. It's just one person steers, and
bro, I like that.
Yeah, it's been good.
What an incredible lesson for this young kid who comes out of high school, kicks butt in high school, gets into, minor league baseball, and it's inevitable, right? Like, every single person is going to see adversity. Every person's going to see challenges in life. Every person's going to have their story of their hard time. Just not very many people actually use that to propel them into the rest of their life, which is, again, full of challenges and adversity. And success in life, success in baseball is being able to operate in adversity.
That's right.
I mean, that to me, like, I was never a super good baseball player, but it's just like any other sport. It's like any other thing in life, right? Is whoever can operate the best in adversity and perform in adversity wins.
Yeah. And for me, you're exactly right. Some people say this is a Debbie Downer, but it's not. It's not whoever succeeds most wins. It's whoever fails the least. And people would say, well, that's not a positive thing. And in some ways, Bill Johnson might want to correct me on that. But I would say that to be honest with you, with baseball, like you fail 70% of the time, you're in the Hall of Fame. There is not another job out there baseball. Like that. Yeah.
Yes.
Like, it's whoever fails least. And what it means for me is whoever understands how to weather the storms the best will come out on top, because you're going to face the storms are inevitable. They are going to hit. It's going to happen. God never, I think a lot of people, think that when they find God, that means that their life's going to be on easy street, and they reject God right after when they find out that it's not easy. It's actually it can tend to be harder, right? Because they don't understand trials and tribulations that they're supposed to take joy in, and which is a very hard concept to grasp until you understand what, like for me, that's what my brewery's a buffalo. I mean, you see a hop head here. I got buffalo tattoos. Like
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, it's a buffalo mentality. It's exactly that, man. I mean, you do a lot of hunting like I do. I hunt those things, but I also take pictures. I stare at them. I gaze at them. I watch them.
Respect.
Man, the whole animal is amazing. And how they're used, how even when they're harvested, every piece of their body is for something. And I mean, you talk to the American Indian, it's every single part of that animal was used for survival, right? And so it was an amazing beast, but it's how they handle storms. They charge them, they take them straight on, they walk at them. When they see a storm coming east, they walk west. They don't go east with it. That's cows do that,
right?
And they so die. For me, they die, they get scattered, they get lost, they get sick, all those things. Where if you look at a buffalo, they just like, nah, we're gonna take his head on. I got a big head and a big huge hump on my back that allows me to push through the storms, plow right through the blizzard, right through the snow, and make a path. And I'm writing a book on that right now. I'm writing a book on the buffalo and using my story on what it means. And I was just editing a chapter today in that book. And that chapter is basically, not only do they plow through snow to make a path, and also they actually push through it to where they they push so much snow out of the way that vegetation pops up. So their herd will graze behind them as they walk to feed. Like it's crazy what they can do, So I very much think that that's a lot of what baseball taught me in life. And for me, I'm sure we'll get into my gauntlet here in a minute that I just walked through. That actually is the whole reason why I think baseball, even I was there for it. People say, why'd you play baseball? Sometimes you don't know until what I just walked through. And that's, it prepared me for my storm. So,
which is a great segue, because I mean, the real game of life for you, baseball was the warm up. And baseball really was your warm up. It was it was the reps, get real reps in, because you're about to get dropped into a storm like no other. And I walked with you through some of that storm, and you have some really incredible people in your life. But, and I ultimately, I've been through the same storm that you have, but you ended up going through a divorce. And can you tell us just a little bit? You don't have to go into details, but tell us a little bit about, the storm that you were in, and we'll unpack it a little bit.
Yeah. I think one of those things growing up, I'm a very loyal person. I don't believe in divorce. I still don't. I'm divorced and I don't believe in divorce. Right.
Me too.
So it's nuts. But, I think there are some storms that come at you that you bring upon yourself, and there's others that hit you that you didn't ask for. And this is one of them. I didn't ask for it. I was married for 22 years, married to a girl that I knew since I was 14. Three boys, three wonderful, beautiful, amazing boys came from that marriage. But it ended, and it was a gut punch to me. I mean, it brought me to my knees. Thought my life was over. And it was to a point where my faith was even challenged. Like, man, I tried. I wasn't perfect. In reality, no matter what, we can blame the other person. And I would say that this was not my call. However, I'm not going to say that the call was made because of some scenarios that were out of my control, but
yeah,
it takes two to tango in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah,
and
it's
so
true.
You can't always say it's one-sided. I was married when I was 20 years old. I did not know what it meant to be married. I didn't even know who I was. And so a lot of wounds and damage took place over probably relational things that just came from immaturity and came to fruition and came to head, after baseball was over, which, unfortunately, I used to brag about how I'd never be that person. And that's where you get humbled a little bit. 84% of us, roughly, sometimes some people say 80, some people say 84, but baseball players get divorced after they retire.
Wow. No way.
It's a high statistic.
Wow. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, because, we're gone every 2 weeks. We come down 10 days. Not a lot of stuff goes wrong. By the time, you leave for 10 days or 12 days, you come home, there's a honeymoon period a little bit. Stuff starts, a little friction. And before it gets head, boom, you're gone again. Right. And so you're kind of back and forth. And then, but then the off seasons are tough for a lot of guys. And we'll all admit it, like a lot of friction in the marriage in the off season because it does rear its head. Right. And then there is no 2-week road trip. There is no, I got to go to the ballpark. There's nothing.
Right.
But then spring training hits and you kind of, and then the season hits and it gets under the rug.
Dude, and by the time you actually are present in your marriage, when your career is over, it's too
late sometimes. It is too late. And like I said, I didn't ask for this. I didn't want it. Yeah. And so it was more of me having just to deal with the hand that was dealt to me. Yeah. And I went through a lot of therapy. And I was holding a Bible study in my brewery. I hold a Bible study in my brewery on Monday mornings.
That's awesome.
We're actually dealing, believe it or not, with a study. I'll give this to you after the podcast. I think you'd be interested in cool. with what you're doing at BraveCo. But the book's called Charge the Storm, and I didn't know anything about it. My buddy said he had a friend. He went on a mountain retreat men's thing, and he wrote a whole 7-week study on the buffalo mentality. Wow. It was nuts. And we talked about something the other day, Jay, that was really important to me.
Yeah.
And I think that it would make a lot of sense. You have to go through it to understand it, but it is a lot of sense. And one of the guys in the group says, when you're in a storm and you're in that poor me mentality, which we all will go through.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's needed. I mean, hey man, we get divorced. You're bitter, you're angry, you got poor me stuff. But when you get healthy, when you actually can get healthy, is when you stop being the poor me, because poor me is selfish. It is a selfish mentality where you take your eyes off God and you say, what about me? Why me? This isn't my fault. I didn't deserve this. And you're super selfish, and you cannot get healthy when you're selfish. Yeah. And thank God we have a really patient God, right? Where he's like,
it's so true.
Throw your temper tantrum, dude. And then you're going to put your eyes back on me, and I'm going to smile, and I'm going to say, you're right on time. I got you. It's not the end of the world. Right. You might have either made a mistake to bring this storm on you, but we're going to get through it, or it came on you and it's not your fault, but we're still going to get through it. And I'm going to wake up from my nap, and I'm going to calm the storm, and I'm going to ask you to walk on water, and I'm going to ask you to keep your eyes on me, and we're going to keep moving. And when he said that, like the selfish, I was like, man, I was thinking about it, Jay. I was like, dude, I tried to weather a storm for almost a year when the final scenario happened, where it was just like, we got to get divorced. And my therapist had to stop helping me. And what she left me was, because when you go through divorce therapy, therapists can't help you anymore because of the whole court stuff. Right. So I had to take a pause, but it was the coolest thing, because I remembered what she said to me in my last session. She goes, I'm going to have to take a break, but remember these things and carry it with you. And it was a 2-year divorce, Jay. It wasn't like a 6-month deal. It was,
bro. No, that was a marathon, bro.
Oh, and unfortunately, I had to weather that. But you know what? When I actually got healthy, became a better father, reunited with my family. My side of the family never really connected with me throughout my marriage. It was just a situation that they weren't valued. Yeah. And my sister, it's not that I had a bad relationship. I didn't get to spend time with them when I was married. And I will say this, when I quit being selfish and I finally let it go and said, okay, I'm mourning the death of the marriage.
Yeah.
Mourning the divorce process. I have to work through the divorce, but who am I?
Yeah.
What makes me me? And I had to look to God. And the second I looked to God for everything, I became a better dad. I became a better son. I became a better brother, a better uncle.
Right.
I literally said, it's not about me. It's about protecting my boys from being hurt by this as best as I possibly can.
Yeah.
And I also had to say, my biggest thing, Jay, was I had to actually look and say, okay, who am I? What are my boundaries?
Yeah.
Who do I need to become so that in my next relationship, I'm the very best version of me for my next wife? Bro, that's what it's about. And that was true. Super important for me.
You're dropping so many bombs here. I want to touch on a bunch of them. Just taking notes so I don't forget. I want to go back just a little bit because there's so many different scenarios that we're going to go through in life. Like you're talking about, we're going to go through seasons where stuff is our fault, and that's fine. And we're going to go through stuff through life where life just happens to us. You find yourself in the middle of a fire and gosh, you didn't start it, but, and I think so many people get stuck there, get really, really stuck in the victim mentality.
Yep. Good point.
And I'll tell you, here's what I've said to a lot of people recently is where you're at in life is probably not your fault. It's probably not your fault. Now follow me.
Great point.
Let me finish it. Yeah. Like when so much of who people are today has been built, was handed to them from their childhood, right? If your parents cared for you, if they didn't care for you, if they spent time pouring into you, if they poured good identity. I mean, so much trauma and pain and rejection is already been handed to kids by the time they even realize they're alive, 12, 13, 14, 15, who they become was literally created for them because of the home environment that they grew up in. And then they have a whole bunch of shame, right? They become adults. They have a whole bunch of shame over the decisions that they've made and the decisions that they're making. Even things that they crave eating. Like if your parents feed you sugar, crap, I mean, that's like, you don't have the money to go buy groceries. You don't have the money. You don't have it's not your responsibility to cook when you're young. Right. So you get brought up and nurtured into this life. And then they feel so much shame over why does my life suck so bad? Why is it? And they get stuck there. They get stuck in one, this is all my fault. And then two, as they get older, they go, oh, no, this is all their fault. But the problem with the victim is that you want to spend as little time as possible being a victim. If there's a way to make it your responsibility, that's the best possible thing that you can do, right? So it's not your fault where you're at, probably it's your responsibility, which is what I've been telling people a lot lately. This is not your kids. The divorce, bro, wasn't your kids, wasn't their fault. But if they're going to move beyond that in life, they have pain in their life. Now that pain, at some point, it will be their responsibility. Right now, it's as a dad, it's your responsibility to help them work through that. Right. But eventually it becomes their responsibility. And I think so much, it's like you find the place that you can own in your marriage, which is the same thing that happened to me. And I won't go into all that because I've already explained mine, but I find myself in the middle of this. Oh my gosh, it feels like my world's burning down. I've done all I can to save it, can no longer save it. Okay. It's time for me to take ownership of my life over this storm and as quickly as possible, get out of the victim mentality. Oh, why am I here? How long am I going to stay here? My life would be so much better if, this guy over here is not dealing with that. Oh, he's got so much more money. He can hire his, if I was Jeremy, I would, my divorce would have ended sooner because he's got the money to get a therapist. I didn't have money to get a therapist. All those things that we do, right? It'd be so much easier because And the truth is that's all BS. All of it, 100% of it is you putting more bars into that prison. And the key is you're putting them there. And so I always feel like it's so important as an adult. Like one of my main things right now for people is you got to take ownership. You got to take ownership of your life. And like the buffalo, if the storm is going one way, don't go the other way.
That's right.
James 1, right? Consider it pure joy when you encounter various trials, for the testing of your faith produces perseverance. And when perseverance runs its course, you will lack nothing. It literally says if you run from the storm, you don't get what you need in life. You end up broken. And bro, I want to commend you. I really do. I want to commend you for walking through that. And I'm not just saying that because the proof's in the pudding, bro. Because you pushed in, your kids are better, you're better. And I'm not just talking emotionally. I'm saying you're a better man than before it happened.
Agreed.
Your kids will be more resilient. They'll bounce back and they'll come back stronger. And your family is going to be stronger and your future will be brighter and stronger. And I saw that in my life. That's what my dad was doing the same thing to me that pastor did to you. Is my dad kept going, son, you don't get to make all the decisions in your life on what happens to you. You just get to decide what you're going to do. And he continually called me up to the highest level, the highest bar of living, which is ownership in deciding every day, what are you going to do? What decisions are you going to make? And man, I can remember I had some real self-pity days.
Bro,
Some self-pity world records probably for the most pitiest day alive. My birthday was one of them. You know, I found out all the details on my birthday, which is just like,
the worst.
Massive. This is my damn. And bro, it's so good to have other men, right, who have weathered life, who can look at you and go, oh no, this right here is your initiation into a great life, into resilience, into perseverance. And so I just wanted to stop and really commend you. But also for people that are out there, you know, we're not going to get to some place. And I was talking to a friend the other day. We're not going to arrive somewhere that is free of, like, we're not working on this life, and somehow, some way, Jeremy's going to get to a place in life where he no longer has pressure, where he no longer has some stress, where he no longer has pain, where, like, that's not happening. You're only going to get to a place where you're strong enough that you don't really care.
That's right.
You kind of look forward to it. It's like working out, or it's like a hard baseball game. You're like, if you went into every game and you just blew it out, it wouldn't even be fun anymore.
That's right. No, you're right. Yeah. And that's the thing is, and that's what I was saying, like baseball, like you said, it initiated me into my actual storm. I think it's just, it was almost like a young bull that was like, hey, you just stay behind me for a little bit, because eventually you're going to have to take on your own herd, and you're have to get them through it. And, you know, I looked at it as, you know, when I was going through this, so I did this thing called the trauma egg, and it was intense, man. So my therapist told me this thing, and she handed me this big, huge poster board and drew this egg on it, and it had a bunch of cracks. And she says, each crack I want you to draw, and I'm trying to access a part of your brain that you're going to need. So you have to draw to access that brain. I don't care if it's a stick figure or if you're a good draw your traumas. Start from the youngest one you can possibly have and go all the way up to now and draw it. And I was like, this is dumb. Like, I hate this. This is psychobabble. I hate this crap. Like, the next thing you know, I'm going to be having my fingers upside down and doing some weird stuff. So I'm like, whatever, you know, so I started drawing it. The memories that started to explode in my brain that I totally forgot about. I had to call my dad. Like, Dad, please tell me that, did this happen? He's like, yeah. I'm like, what? I didn't even remember that. And he's like, what do you mean? I said, I'm just starting to remember these things. But what happened is it started to shape me. Like you said, it's not my fault. Like, I did really well in baseball because I was brought up in an anxious environment. I was traveling all the time for military. My dad was gone. He was a bombardier for B-52. He would leave and couldn't tell me where he was going for like 2 weeks. And we're in Guam. We're close to all the Cold War stuff. Like, it wasn't like we were in Kansas and my dad went somewhere. Like, we're right in the middle of like,
you're in the line of fire
going down, you know? Yeah. And he'd leave for 2 weeks and I never hear from him.
Wow.
And I mean, one of my dad's coming back and it was just crazy. And then I was killed almost like 8 different times. Like I said, a hammerhead came over a reef. Yeah. Metal fear sharks almost got me. I almost drowned. I got sucked out to sea one time and no one could get me. My surfer had to swim out and grab me. My dad couldn't. I was underwater drowning.
Wow.
I've been hit, I've been hit head on at 55 miles an hour and walked away from it. I've been hit twice. There's so many, I'm drawing all these traumas. Like,
bro, you need stuff. 2 eggs.
Yeah, exactly. I'm asking for another poster board. Like, I need another one, you know? And I'm like, drawing all these traumas. And my therapist looked at me and she's like, I've done a lot of therapy and this is really intense. Yeah. And she's like, you know why you're good at functioning in anxiety? Because you were raised in it.
Because you've not known anything else.
Yeah, in fact, if I don't have anxious moments, I would create them. I would literally create them. And I didn't even know it. Like now I'm like, now that I've been actually healing from it, I want 0 to do with anxiety. Yeah. Like there's some things that I thrive in, right? The anxiety of a hunt. Like, I mean, you've been in it. You do the same thing, dude. Like going out there in Alaska, chance of dying, something happens to you.
It's necessary.
Like, it's necessary. Like way different. And so she was like, man, when you pitched, the reason why you didn't do good as a starter, she actually looked me up. It was hilarious. And this woman, don't get me wrong, she's crazy. She's like a master diver. She's a skydiver. She's a pilot. Wow. This woman does everything. Like, she's just like, man, I just go do stuff.
That's a good therapist.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? She was also a PK. So she's like, I got trauma for being a PK, right? So so we were sitting there talking and she was like, I looked you up baseball wise just to kind of follow your career. And she's like, you know why you sucked as a starter? I was like, thank you. You know, like, I was like, appreciate that. She's like, because you didn't have pressure. Like it's 0-0 in the first. You had 9 innings. Like you didn't feel the sense of urgency in the first inning. But when you came in as a reliever and the back was against the wall and you had no choice. Focus. Yeah, your anxiety went up, you calmed down and you excelled. You were built for that, Jeremy. Wow. It's kind of how God shaped you in a way, but understand that it has also caused trauma in relationships. It's caused, dysfunction. And she said, so we're going to work on those things. And now it's why. And she looked at me and says, Jeremy, you're going through a divorce when you don't believe in divorce. 22-year-old marriage has died. It's over, Jeremy. She had to look at me and she goes, it's over and it's okay. And she's a Christian. She's a Christian therapist. She goes, Jeremy, it's okay. You're going to be fine. Yeah. And you're going to be healthier because your anxiety, it's too much. And she's like, you were not functioning well in it. Your relationship was not functioning well. 2 people got to want to be in the marriage. She doesn't want to be in the marriage. It's over. And you know what? You're going to be fine. And we're going to take this on. But this is the worst storm of your life, Jeremy. And you were built for it. You can handle it. You can deal with it. And man, I did. I literally said, man, I took on so many storms, so much chaos. But what I utilized in baseball is dealing with the uncontrollable and the controllable. The uncontrollable was I'm getting divorced. That's not the controllable. The controllable is how do I handle myself spiritually, mentally, physically? I got in the best physical shape of my life. I was boxing. I was mountain biking. I was lifting. I got emotionally strong. I found someone that I've been dating for over a year. We're celibate. We do not have sex. And I promised my sons that I will not have sex until I get married. And I promised her that regardless of how this works out, I love you. And yeah, marriage is in our future, hopefully. Yeah. But we're not having sex before that. And she's on board. And it's like all those things.
Come on.
And that's a storm in and of itself, Jay. I'm 42 years old.
Bro.
Like, so it's not easy. You know, I'm not going to sugarcoat that. But the reality of it is like, I've got to be selfless for other people. And I feel so much better because I'm able to weather storms, deal with them, and know now beyond a shadow of a doubt, I get what it means by taking joy in trials and tribulations. I get one. I get what it means to be like, hey, if you're going to live with Christ, you got to die with him. I'm starting to actually grasp that mentality. I love it, it's super fulfilling in the most weird way, but it's fulfilling.
Then that's the thing, right? That's the thing about it is responsibility gives us purpose. And when you take all that ownership of your life and then you start pressing into it, you have things every day to be proud of. You have, and you feel like this guy that's or on a real path, on a real journey, and you're no longer afraid and running from stuff. Like, how do you feel proud of yourself when you live a passive life and you run away from everything? You know, so many men are in that boat, right? They got all these storms coming up, and we're how long am I going to be in here and pushing away and without taking that responsibility and without being proud of yourself and doing things like, dude, you could easily justify sleeping with your girlfriend or easily justify getting married really quick. But bro, you wouldn't be proud of yourself and your boys deep down wouldn't be proud of you. But now you have this incredible story, right? Doesn't matter how it ends. Like you've already won. You have this incredible story of you've already decided the outcome is for your boys and for her and for you, respect and honor. You're showing them a good example. You're leading by example. And man, that's a life that you can only be proud of. So that's incredible, bro.
Yeah. Thank you.
Which again is why we're talking you're an inspiration and you're one of those guys that I love to have on because it takes the excuses away and I need that. I need men in my life to take my excuses away. Right. I need those stories of, oh, yeah, you have it hard, but not as hard as I do. Yeah. And it's not a competition and you're going to go through, so you're taking excuses away from everyone else and letting us know what's possible, which is freaking awesome. Let's talk a little bit about your brewery.
Yeah.
I'm super stoked on that. Tell me a little bit about, why you started it and where it's at and are you guys open, all that stuff.
Yeah, so it was a cool story. It actually was birthed in, I've always kind of, when I was in San Francisco, I did a fundraisers at this place called 21st Amendment, phenomenal brewery, top 20 in the country. And I got to know some great people there because of the fundraisers. I got to understand beer and a lot of misconceptions, even I talked to my family about it. My mom is big time anti-alcohol person. She raised, her dad had some alcohol issues, so she doesn't like it. Sister and her husband, their pastor, pretty conservative. So they're not big into it. And I finally had to just look at them and say, you realize breweries is not about a bunch of drunks. That is not what it is about. It is far from it. It is not a bar. It's a brewery. There's two different things. I'm not saying people don't take it too far from time to time, but that's not what they're about. And I started learning a lot. And it was so much about community. It was so much about bonding. It was so much about people getting together and sharing their hearts and enjoying breaking of bread and drinking beer. Like it was, for me, it's a lot like it's drinking wine and breaking bread and talking life. So I got that and I was sitting there and that's why I fell in love with it. But I was in Sacramento right in the middle of this storm and I was telling nobody about it. I didn't know. I didn't want to tell anybody. And so I was still speaking and traveling, which was very difficult for me. I had a lot of panic attacks on the plane. I hate pharmaceuticals, do not like them, but I actually had to take Xanax. If not, I was going to die. Right, for sure. It was really hard for me. And so for me, it was, I was trying to deal with it and I fly in. I got to speak at this Rolling Hills, a big church in Sacramento. It's like a mega church. It's the close to the Jesus Culture boys, like all those people down there, right?
Yeah.
And this pastor brings me in, and they had a split kind of a thing going on. So he was trying to rebuild it. He's coming from Atlanta, young guy, and he's like, "Hey, I know you're going to speak at my church, but I'd like you to. Would you mind doing a men's thing for me?" I'm like, "Dude, you brought me in for the weekend. If you want me to have a 2 a.m. men's breakfast, I mean, that's what I'm here for. Like, it's part of the gig."
Do it.
And so he's like, "All right." He goes, I got to tell you, like, it's not at our church. And I'm like, okay. He's like, I just can't get men to come. And I'm like, well, where at your church you have it? And he goes, well, I have it in the classrooms. I'm like, no man after work wants to go into a classroom, bro. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, I would not go either. He's like, yeah I know. That's why I just don't want to offend you, but I'm putting it at a brewery. And I laughed at him. I was like, you obviously don't know me. So I was like, I'm perfectly fine speaking at a brewery. He's like, okay, I just didn't know. I'm kind of nervous. It's kind of out there a little bit. The church isn't it's pretty conservative. So I'm wondering if anybody's going to show up. And we pull up to this brewery, and there's like 250 men.
Wow.
That are sitting, and his eyes get big, and he's like, I didn't even know this many men went to my, like, this is ridiculous. I'm like, and I looked at him and I was like, I'd like to say it's because I was a giant. That's why they showed up. But I think there is some of that, but I think it has a lot to do with the fact that there's a really cool, comfortable setting to come hear someone talk.
Yeah, bro. You can grab a beer and you can hear someone talk.
And there's freedom in the sense of, like, the pastor said we can actually have a beer. We don't have to hide our Coors Light in our back fridge in our garage. Like, we actually can, like, go have one. And so I'm like, so I get in there, I grab a beer. It's called Jack Russell Brewery. It's up high up in that mountain area, Sacramento, where it starts to get cold. And so we get in there, and I go on stage, and I light my cigar, and I'm like, and you see guys, like, eyes light up, and they look around, and I'm like, I kind of BS with them a little bit and talk around, and just kind of, hey, cause all of a sudden they started leaving, and everybody was running to the rigs, coming back with cigarettes and cigars. Like, it was awesome. Like, I started laughing. He's like, if he can have a cigar, we're having some. So I light this cigar, and I got this beer in my hand, and I just talk about what we're talking about. Talking about the buffalo mentality, weathering storms, what it's like to be a man, what it's like to show vulnerability, to actually cry in front of your children because it's healthy. Bro. Not because it's weak. It's healthy.
Yeah.
And love on your boys. I mean, I had boys, but love on your children, your boys, your daughters. Cry in front of them when there's a reason to cry. Like, if there's a safe time to cry and there's an unsafe time to cry, right? So, like, when it's safe, and show that, and show your family that emotion is okay. Yeah. And I got that point. And man, by the time I was done, men were crying. There was people showing up. There are people that show up at a brewery, obviously, because you don't shut those down. And this woman came up to me. It's a men's only event, and a woman comes up to me, and they were like, she was like, "Hey, we had no idea you were even going to be here. We're Giants fans, but all of a sudden we look up, we're like, oh my gosh, it's Jeremy." And my husband and I we're about done. We came as a date night because we were like, wow, something, because we're over. We have to do something to revive our marriage. So we just were like, let's try date night at a brewery. My husband loves beer. I'm like, I'll take him to a brewery, anything. She goes, and he heard you speak, and he wept. Wow. Blessed me big time, man. Like, I was like, dude, she's like, we don't go to this church. We don't know anything that's going on. And in my mind, I was like, if nobody got it but that guy, I'm good. Like, I'm good. And done. And I drove down the hill, and I felt like God say, this is what I want you to do. And I'm like, man, a brewery? I said, God, I'm about to go through a divorce. I'm about to lose 50% of my money. You kidding me? I don't have time to do that. How am I going to invest in a brewery? Like, I'm like, and I was like, well, I'm going to know for sure. I drove down, I hit San Francisco because I had to work for the team for a little bit. I met one of the general managers of 21st Amendment was at the game, and I said, hey, where you at? He said, I'm at the game. I'm like, hey, meet me across the street. I'm staying at the Hotel Via right across the street. They have a rooftop bar. Meet me up there for a drink. I got to talk to you about something. So he meets me up there, and I said, this is what I want to do. And I told him, I said, I want to start a brewery in Bernie. And he looked at me. He goes, I'm in. I'm like,
wow.
Really? Yeah. He's like, listen, let me tie some loose ends here, but I kind of feel like I'm ready to kind of venture into something like that. He goes, Jeremy, I grew up in El Paso, raised in El Paso, Texas. I know Texas. I came out here to run breweries. I know the business. I've been in it for 20 years. Like, wow. I'll be happy to let's try it, man. Let's do something. But he goes, but I'm not leaving without Jaron. And Jaron is one of the main brewers for 21st. And I'm like, you're not getting that guy. He won the silver for his lager. Like, they're not letting him get it. And he was like, all right, just give me some time. So he calls me one day about 2 months later, and he's like, hey, I think I got Jaron to get on board. And I didn't poach from 20. Let's just put this out there. I didn't poach those guys. I was very respectful, and I said, listen, I love 21st Amendment. I still do. I want to be very respectful. So make sure this is done right, because I don't want to be known as that guy. And they said, no, we've talked to them, and they understand. And Jaron is actually kind of was thinking about coming out that way towards Austin. And I'm like, well, I'm 70 miles south. And he was like, and he bought it. And he said, but Jaron wants you to call him himself. So I called him, talked to him about my vision. It's a give back brewery. That's what we did. That's how we met, through give back. So we give back to the community. Each beer will end up going to a cause. And awesome. They were in. And I felt it was such a struggleless scenario that I'm like, I'm pretty sure God just kicked the door open and said, it's kind of obvious, dude. Don't say my lifeline didn't come when you say you're drowning. When I threw you,
bro, you built all this. Yeah. You built all this through COVID.
Yeah. And I did. I literally in COVID, they moved out here, moved their families out here, found a place. COVID was full on. Oh. Took a risk. Everybody's like, are you my own divorce attorney was like, are you out of your mind? And I'm like, possibly. But he knows I was a man of faith, and he was like, dude, you're stupid, but if you want to do it, we'll figure out a way to make sure the judge helps give you some money to be able to do it, because everything gets locked down in the divorce process. So we negotiated that. I put money into it, and it is beautiful. It's an 1897 livery barn. I found a well in the middle of this brewery that no one even knew existed.
No way.
And he was jackhammering through a floor. His jackhammer fell through the floor. It's a 36-foot well from the 1800s they used to feed the horses, and the city knew nothing about it.
Oh my God.
I made a pub table out of it with a glass top so you can see down it. Like, I've got original 2x8s from the 1800s in the ceiling exposed. I've got a buffalo mural that's probably 16 feet long by 12 feet tall, and it's charging storms. The buffalo is literally charging. That's legit. Storms. Beautiful. And the beer is phenomenal. We opened up probably about 5 weeks ago. Yeah. We've already went through beer once. I got back from spring break with my boys, and my brewer goes, we have good news and bad news. I said, just hit me with the bad news. I'm better with that. And he's like, we ran out of beer. I'm like, what's the good news? We ran out of beer. That's a good point, but we still have to fix the issue. So let's start making some more beer. But it was a crazy thing. The city has been so amazing. I'll have 200-300 people in the beer garden, and there are people that are hanging out. My buddies, I got my pastors coming. I got people from
that's so cool.
Families are my kid friendly, cornhole, dog friendly. People are connecting. I'm running a men's Bible study on Monday mornings out of there. I'm about ready to launch to churches. Now that I've got my bearings under me a little bit, on a day a month, I'll do one time a month for a church. They can get the beer garden shut down. I'll do a men's night with them. Like, it's so awesome, and it's so God breathed, like it feels so good, and we're doing well. And there's been tons of articles on us, and it's not. The baseball player plays a little bit into it. I'm not denying that, but
it should.
What we stand for as a community, like the mayor has put my GM on the stinking committee for events. like we're already in the city of with not the politics, I wouldn't say, but kind of, just trying to help mold this city and for the good, for all about community, because now that we're out of COVID, people are craving connection, man.
They are.
And it is so good. It's so awesome.
Man. I love that. And gosh, congrats on starting all that and charging it. People don't understand how hard it is to not only start a business, but a business in the middle of COVID, a business in the middle of COVID, coming out of divorce, being a single dad, and doing it well. Gosh, dude, freaking good job.
And my GM's great, Brandon, and they all know it. They know my story. They know exactly what I'm dealing with. Yeah. And they know that, hey, I can be here. We're open 7 days a week, 11 a.m. to midnight. And I'm there from 9 to 2 because I got my children. I got to pick my boys up from school.
Cool, dude.
When I don't have my boys when they're at their mothers, I'm like, okay, I'm here. But then I'm kind of gassed from having my kids for 5 days. So, I mean, he makes fun of me. He said, man, you should have seen it here at 10 o'clock when you rolled over to your left side in bed. It actually got kind of good fun in here. I was like, yeah, dude, I'm in bed by 9. I've got no reason to be up. But I'll have some times where I'll come over here and I'll be like, you know what? I'll roll into the beer garden. It's going pretty good. I don't have my kids. I'm gonna sit out back and I'll light a cigar by the fire pit back there and talk with people and have a good time and be a part of a community. And it's so much fun. I mean, we do trivia Tuesdays. I mean, we just have different ways to have influence. And in the end, for some of these, for most of my staff here, it's making money. It's taking care of their families. Yeah. Good for them. For me, it's not as much about that. For me, it's like, I get to bring the aroma of Christ in a way that I was always dreaming of. But Jay, I don't know if I would have done it unless I had to weather that storm. I don't know if I would have done it. I was so preoccupied with trying to figure out a marriage that even at the time of everything going down, it was still a struggle. I mean, we were dealing with that 22 years of just frustration and trying to raise kids and I don't know if I would have done it. And for me, I'm not saying that I'm definitely not saying God's not for divorce either. He didn't want that to happen, but I think he truly took what was meant for evil and made it good, and that's truly how I live in this situation. Well,
man, your whole life is an example of that from start to where you're at today. And again, I think it's so exciting to me, to have a friend that's modeling that, and then to be able to give that to other men who, no matter where you're at in your life, if you're starting a business, if you're raising kids, if you're going through a hard time, guys can get a clear picture from you of the path to take, which is dive into community. Don't run from the storm, go straight for it. Be vulnerable, be honest, cry if you got to, but don't give up, and good things happen, holding out and living life the way it's supposed to be lived with conviction. And, it always pays off. It always pays off in the end. The tough road is also the funnest road. And you're such a picture of that, man. So listen, we're going to wrap this up, but where's your brewery at? Is it in Boerne? Is that what you said?
In Boerne, Texas, about 12 miles north of San Antonio on I-10. Yep.
Yeah. So if you're in Texas, if you're flying into Texas, if you're anywhere around there, go grab a beer, hang out with Jeremy, play some trivia. Yeah. You can go. What nights do you do the Bible? Oh, mornings. It's Monday morning.
Monday mornings. Yep. We do a men's
Monday morning,
8 o'clock
Bible study. Go get in the Word, grab a beer, hang out with some guys, and get a little bit sharper at free roam. So, dude, congrats on that. Jeremy, thanks so much for coming on here and just sharing your story with us and taking us through a little bit of your life and giving us some tips and tools to become better men. That's what we're here to do. So,
thank you for having me on, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you too. Have an incredible week.
Thank you, man.
Hey guys, thanks so much for listening to the BraveCo podcast. If you like this podcast, would you please rate it, review it, leave us a great comment. And if you like this episode in particular, share it with your friends and family. That helps us to spread the word. Guys, stay brave. We'll see you next week.